This is by far the best Fantastic Four film to date.
It's fantastic.
Say that again?
Hey everyone, Jedi Mike here, and I'm back with another video. Today, I'm going to be reviewing the new film, Fantastic Four: First Steps, non-spoiler review. I had the privilege of attending the press screening from Marvel Studios, and I can tell you my initial thoughts. I was very excited for this film. This was my most anticipated film of the year. And again, I had a lot of expectations. Now, do they deliver? Does it meet my expectations? Yes, it does. This is by far the best Fantastic Four film we have had to date. However, it does have its problems. First, let me just talk off with the initial cast: Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Ebon Moss-Bachrach, and Joseph Quinn. This was a very strong team dynamic in this film. And again, the biggest thing emphasized in this movie that us as Fantastic Four fans want was the aspect of family. And boy, do they deliver. The priority of this movie was emphasizing this is a family. Not only that you have the addition of Franklin Richards, the most OP character in all of the Marvel universe, but you also get, Marvel's first family back in Marvel Studios' hands. This is long awaited and overdue, and I felt they definitely delivered with this. I thought the chemistry that, especially between Pedro Pascal and Vanessa Kirby, they definitely deliver like they've been in a relationship for many, many years, husband and wife, and now they're, welcoming a child into the world. But also Ebon Moss-Bachrach's the thing. Like, come on. I have to say the visual effects in this movie is by far one of the best MCU films in terms of visual effects I've seen in several years. The motion capture on the thing, as well as just in terms of the world that they established here in an alternate universe of the MCU, which is, I believe, is 828 universe, and you'll find out why it's called 828. But this universe, again, is separate in an alternate 1960s futuristic, so maybe where Fantastic Four are the only heroes in this world, right? But also I want to talk about where I feel was a standout in this team, which was Joseph Quinn. Now, for me, I'm one of the biggest Johnny Storm fans you will ever meet, right? For me, Chris Evans, that sentiment, to me, in my head, that is Johnny Storm, even though he turned to Captain America and then he came back as Johnny Storm literally last year. Now this with Joseph Quinn, I was happy with his casting, but I was want to see if he can deliver. And I gotta say, this is by far one of the most mature Johnny Storms I've seen in not just live action, but also just in terms of iteration. I've seen him definitely in different stages of the comics, but I really was a big fan of Johnny Storm in this movie. But I also want to talk about the threat of this movie, which is the Silver Surfer and Galactus. Now, starting with the Silver Surfer, this is a different Silver Surfer than one we're initially fawn over to. This is Shia LaBeouf's character, the female version of Silver Surfer, and I do believe that she did a really good job in terms of having a commanding presence in this movie, in terms of being the hero of Galactus. And I felt, in terms of visual effects wise, even though there's some scenes that it was not the best, I do believe in terms of her movement and again the motion capture of her character, especially when we see some scenes in outer space and stuff, was very, very strong. Now let's talk about Galactus. Now, he's not a poo cloud in this. This Galactus is Galactus, what we all know and love. And I felt he had a very menacing voice, menacing presence, and a Galactus that you remember from the comics. Now, which will go into a little bit of my negatives of this film, in terms of what I had issues with, which was the third act. Now, this movie, again, it jump starts into this world we're already, living in with the Fantastic Four, and we kind of get a rundown of their origin. But again, this is not origin film, and this film is continuing on a fast pace where we're kind of just jumping off different points of these character stories. And for me as an audience member, I really wanted them like, hey, can we just slow down and sit in this new alternate universe that we're in? This is the first time for MCU that you're letting us exist in this world, aside, from the main MCU timeline. And as important as Fantastic Four, let's kind of manifest and sit with these characters. And I felt a lot of that was kind of rushed, especially when it comes to terms of their villains too. We get Galactus, but do we get a lot of him? Not as much as I would like to. But now, obviously, again, not to give you any spoilers or anything, there might be potential for things in the future, but I wanted more of Galactus, especially more of Silver Surfer. I Knowing that this is a character in the comics, Shia LaBeouf is a character from the comics, I felt that this film definitely had some things left on the cutting room floor, especially when it comes to the backstory of these characters, and a little bit, I guess, of emotional development too. Especially going to the Thing. I think Evan, like, he did a good job, but what he was given, I felt there were some more things to be that there was a store for us with his character, but I guess in terms of the final cut of the movie, they didn't really give us that much. And I was we're seeing some certain scenes where, like, all right, there's more things, like this character is feeling a sense of sadness and loneliness, right? Previously, what we've seen with the Michael Chiklis version of the Thing from the original Fantastic Four film, he's one of my favorites from that film, and I felt that film kind of solidified in terms of the Thing on an emotional level more than this movie. But going to also another negative too, I feel this movie was too short. This film going about, I think, an hour and 44 minutes, one of the shortest Marvel films in a minute. And I think, and you definitely feel that in terms of your anticipation level and like the pacing of it. I felt like, oh, okay, now we're in the third act. Okay, here we go. It felt more like a sprint than a marathon. That makes sense. Like they're rushing into the next plot point to the next, point of the story. And I will say, the big issues I have with this movie, aside from the pacing and how this film is structured, again, really goes to more of the MCU problems that we've been kind of complaining about for the last few movies, and those problems still continue on, and I think they're going to continue on until we wrapped up this particular arc of the multiverse saga in the MCU. I felt that there were certain things that, like, where they set the audience expectation for the Fantastic Four to be in a certain position at the end of this movie, and when you see this film, it doesn't go as you might have thought it would be, right? But also too, there's a lot of questions in terms of this actual team. Is that, why is this team fantastic? It's more of, oh, show don't tell. That makes sense, right? And I felt with other previous Fantastic Four movies, even though this one has the dynamic cast, the visual effects and everything, one thing that is lacking, the action. And probably something they took from Fan Four Stick, the 2015 one, which we don't really want to talk about, right? But there was a lack of action in this movie. And I was very surprised with that, just because just what we saw in the trailers. But if you look back in previous iterations of Fantastic Four, there really wasn't a moment. There was a few moments, especially in the original ones, with the Chris Evans ones, that you have hero moments of, hero moment of Mr. Fantastic, hero moment of the Thing, or Johnny Storm or Sue Storm, Johnny going supernova, stuff like that, right? With here, you get more moments on an emotional level with the family of the Fantastic Four than the action. And I think it's more of not the fact that they couldn't do action. I think they just prioritized what they felt was more important for the future of the MCU, is to solidify the Fantastic Four. And I felt, for me, in this movie, it suffered from a Star Trek problem, where it focused more on the science, the exploration, but really not more of the entertainment and the adrenaline rush for some fans might want to desire, which is what we got with the J.J. Abrams one, where people say, well, we got Star Trek heart and beat, but we got with Star Wars rock and roll. That's where people made that comparison with the J.J. Abrams Star Trek. And with here, you get that a little bit in this movie, where there's a lack of action, and for some people, you might be bored. For me, I wasn't. I was eating all this up on the emotional level. Me and my wife were both watching this film. Again, if you are a parent, you're going to enjoy this movie. And I also believe for families too. Like, again, there's moments where it's like you might tear up, just because like they sell it that, yeah, this is a dynamic that's here to stay within this Marvel universe, as we're moving towards Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. But my one big problem that I had going into this movie, which I go back to my positives, One big problem was Pedro Pascal. I was not a fan of his casting. Not that I wasn't a fan of him as an actor. It was the fact that was he going to pull off Reed Richards, smartest man in the Marvel universe, right? And especially with the story that's going on in the next installments of the MCU, particularly these next two, the Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars. Having a strong Reed Richards is not only important, but it's necessary. It's vital. And I felt if they weren't able to sell Pedro Pascal and Mr. Fantastic, then it would kind of, as a viewer for me, it will take me out. But I will say, watch this movie. Pedro Pascal continue to surprise you, because I was immediately sold that this man is the smartest man in the Marvel universe, or particularly in this world, right? That's already technologically advanced. And for me, I felt that Pedro did a very good job of adding another emotional element of Reed Richards that we've seen in comics, but haven't really fully seen in the films. And we got a little bit of that in Rise of the Silver Surfer, but this you get more dynamic of how Reed Richards, his mind is as much as it's a blessing, is also a curse, and it not only affects his relationship with himself, but also the people that he holds most dear, with his wife Sue Storm, with their child Franklin Richards, and, having a burden like, I need to fix this problem, and I felt he conveyed that in a realistic way. But also this movie, because you had Franklin Richards, there was a lot of stakes here that added into this, but at the same time, I'm also an MCU fan and a comic reader, so I'm like, all right, I already know, none of these characters are going to die, because they're going to be in the next film. You saw the musical chairs for the Avengers Doomsday, so yeah, this is going to happen. Nothing's going to be a surprise for you. But Pedro, I felt he definitely won me over with this. The music. Let me talk about the music. Michael Giacchino's score is some of the best we have seen since, I'll say, the first Black Panther theme for that film. Yeah, this is some of the best music we ever had in the MCU by far. Period. Literally, you're gonna be humming the song, the theme. Fantastic Four walking out of the theater. This was really an iconic theme that's gonna be stand a test of time, I believe. And Michael Giacchino, he does not lead you astray. Again, he's a very, very talented composer for these films, but this film definitely has a memorable theme. And again, it take you back to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man theme, the Black Panther theme, some of those strong Marvel themes, the Spider-Man themes and stuff. So, but yeah, this was iconic theme, and he definitely delivered with this. There are two post-credit scenes. The second one is more of a gag. Again, still saying this retro 60s feel and stuff like that. The post-credit scene is the important one, and I'll talk more about that in my spoiler review, which we'll have later this week. But yes, please, by the time you guys watch the video, I hope you have not seen the post-credit scene, because we definitely have a lot to talk about. But make sure you subscribe button, comment, like, and share. Let me know your thoughts after you go see Fantastic Four First Steps, which is the best MCU film of this year. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.